I don't think your mic's on, is it?
It's on now.
There it is.
Start screaming.
Hello? Okay. We will now take public comments on the Tommy Express Car Wash. All of you have been sworn in,
Yes.
and we will proceed. Remember now, please, you're limited to 4 minutes per discussion. Thank you very much. Mr.
Okay,
Mayor?
Mayor Rick Steinmeier, I have a question about whether the wall on the west side is going to be insulated for noise. Is it necessary to have the wall on that side anyways? And is the rainwater going to go under the wall towards the preserve area, or does it have to all go towards the road, towards the beach road? As the questions I had, I don't know if I answered questions from staff, or from the staff, or somebody could answer these questions.
We need Mike for that?
I would go ahead and complete the rest of the
Or complete all the other comments
and then
first.
let the
Okay.
staff and the
We will
applicant
hold
come back and
that question in abeyance. Next comment, please.
Good morning, or afternoon now.
No,
I
morning.
don't have the fancy stuff, but I have,
May- You want to pass it out to me?
I have, 4 of them that you guys can share.
Sure. And then please just state your name for the record and your address.
I'm Kathy Green, and I live at 27845 Lime Street.
And you have been sworn.
Yes, sir, I have. Excuse me, I'm going to read my points here, and forgive me if I get a little nervous. But everyone, as we know, is planning for the 100-year flood. Residents of Lime Street and surrounding areas are preparing for the 15-year flood. The proposed location for Tommy's Car Wash suffered major flooding in 1995, 2008, and most recently in 2017 with Irma. After Irma, the city hired Structure Point to do a drainage improvement program, which is what I've just given you. In the fall, we had a meeting, and you can see from those, what I've printed out, that it is specifically designed that we have a detention pond on Lime Street, exactly where the car wash is to be. As you know, a detention pond is defined as a dry pond to hold back floodwaters and slowly release the water so that the rivers do not become flooded. As I mentioned, I attended a meeting. I specifically asked what would happen if the detention pond was not on Lime Street. And I was told by the engineers that Lime Street and West would continue to flood. I'm confident that the city has records of that, so you can go back and listen for yourself. Special exception or exemption has criteria, and I want to address a few. One, the testimony of the public. We have attended the meetings. No one is in support of this. No one has showed up to say, yes, we want the car wash. E, whether the request is consistent with the goals, objectives, policies, and intent. Oh, excuse me, I want to pass on that one. G, whether the request will protect, conserve, or preserve environmental critical areas and natural resources. Flooding is an environmental issue. I hope you all agree with me on that. We need a detention pond, not a car wash. Thank you to the designers for at least trying to save our trees, but it does not help us with our flooding. I is whether the request will damage, hazard, be a nuisance, or other detriment to persons or property. The approval of the car wash and not a detention pond will damage the properties on Lime Street and to the west. Page 185 in the proposal that you have of the 194 pages for Tommy's Car Wash, I asked the question at one of the meetings, and I asked, excuse me, you mentioned that your floodplain compensation had to be enough to support what you were building, and that you had to offset just what you were building. The response that I received from Michael Herrera was yes, they are only taking care of what they are building. So we, as residents, will continue to flood. The additional traffic will also be a nuisance to the residents of Lime Street. As you know, the majority of Lime Street is private. It is not public. You have until Tangerine Everything else is a private street. Who's going to pay for the upkeep of our street for all the people who continue to take a left? And we know this happens on a daily basis. The additional traffic will also pose a safety hazard, as you cannot safely make a left-hand turn off of Lime Street, and you cannot cross 4 lanes of traffic onto Livingston. In season, you can't even take a right and try to make a U-turn. So these are safety hazards. As a resident of Lime Street for the past 22 years, I respectfully ask that you deny the special exception for Tommy's Car Wash. Please put the hundreds of homes and families that are going to be in flood area. Allowing a car wash is not using land as a detention pond, will devastate the families and only benefit one person.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Good afternoon. My name's David Fox. I'm a resident of Lime Street as well. And I have some things I would like to give you guys to review. I have an FDOT study about its Bonita Beach Road and US 41 and the traffic increases that it's going. I have several copies for you guys. I have,
Keep your comments on the record. If you want to hand these out, pass them along.
okay. And that's the petition to deny it and the water usage.
All righty. Petitions to
And I'm going to make Kathy look not nervous. I am here to address the concerns about the proposed car wash on the corner of Lime Street and Bonita Beach Road. This hearing is to grant a special exception to allow construction of the car wash. I have a petition signed by 97 residents and their families that will be adversely affected. We are requesting the board not grant this special exception. Lime Street is a dead-end private road off of Bonita Beach Road. From Bonita Beach Road, there is no turn lane for access to Lime Street. With 3 lanes of traffic heading west, nor is there room to put in a turn lane, as the businesses along Bonita Beach Road have a limited easement. The paving of Lime Street is paid for by the residents of Lime Street through the Gravity Phase 2 assessment, which is included in our water bill. Special exception. The term means to give exception to the status quo. The zoning ordinance are in place to ensure the land use is in compliance with current codes. We want to enforce the current codes. This is why the codes were adopted, to protect the community, not be excluded for business. We request the special exception be denied. The traffic study presented by the staff of said car wash was done in July 2022, which is not an accurate representation of the actual traffic concerns. At one meeting, we were told Bonita Beach Road had 565 cars per hour at peak usage. The car wash would not negatively affect the traffic on Bonita Beach Road. A study from FDOT posted April 5th, 2023, which I have with me today and copies for the board to review. I quote, "According to FDOT's existing levels of service, the majority of the intersection has a grade F during midday and evening peak periods, with some intersection queues reaching more than 1,100 feet. If the intersection remains as is, the queues of the intersection will be significantly longer by 2050, with the southern part of the intersection anticipated to reach more than 2,400 feet queue during peak traffic. Increased traffic will result in increased traffic crashes and possibly fatalities. At our last meeting, the residents were told to find an alternate way home to avoid the inconvenience of having their car wash on the corner of the road. This road is 98% residential. We were told, and I quote, "Just learn to deal with it. Respectfully, we do not wish to learn to deal with it. These are our homes." Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next, please.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I want to talk to you guys as a person that lives in Tangerine,
Did you give your name?
Joe Franco. It's a major inconvenience, the approval of this car wash at the corner. Let me just say that if you guys, have you guys gone through a car wash ever? Have you? Have you guys gone to the one over there in Mr. by Home Depot? I don't know if it's the study of traffic is correct, but I don't know if 39 or what was it that you guys said? 70. How many vehicles a day? What was it?
39 an hour.
30 an hour?
39 an hour.
Or 39 an hour? Okay. Imagine 39 vehicles an hour going on Lime Street. It's a very narrow road. I don't know if you guys been there before. Mainly the cars, and we've seen that happening many times. Cars going south on Imperial, they usually, to avoid traffic, either cut through Tangerine or Orange Blossom. So now if you have a car wash in that corner, most of the cars, knowing that the car wash is there already, are most likely gonna cut through. So that's increasing the traffic. I don't have the numbers with me, but it's going to be pretty bad. I work for the Collier County. I'm a floodplain coordinator, and I don't know if residents are allowed to have a copy of the stormwater plan before it's approved.
Yes, it's a public record.
It's a public record? Okay. So if we may have the copy of that, I would like to take a look and see what the impact of the stormwater is going to be to the residents around the car wash. As I know, as you guys know pretty well, the flooding is been really bad in the hurricanes. So that's one thing that I would like to request. That's pretty much it. I just, as a person that, I don't know if you guys would like to have a car wash right next to your house or something like that. We're only 300 feet from it. But it's a great impact to our community. The traffic is going to be absolutely asinine, and the floodwaters are probably not gonna help to this problem. So I don't have anything else to say. I really didn't prepare anything, but I'm strongly opposing the construction of this car wash in our community. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Good morning, board members. My name is Frank Macias. I'm also a resident on Lime Street as well. I'm coming here today in opposition to the proposed car washes that they want to build on Bonita Beach Road. I'm here with my family today, my wife and my 2-year-old daughter. We frequently take walks throughout the neighborhood several times a day, and it is, in my opinion, that building a car wash here would only increase the number of cars that frequent our neighborhood. And I think that from a resident point of view, having that influx of cars is not only detrimental to our small neighborhood, but poses a significant safety risk to pedestrians who frequently ride their bikes and walk throughout that neighborhood as well. One of your board members made a keen observation, Russ. He made an observation of saying that there is already a car wash less than 1 mile from the proposed building site. So having this car wash here would be unnecessary and also a redundancy, in my opinion. I would like to leave you with this last remark. I think that all of you guys here, if you had a car wash being proposed to be built close to or near your homes, I think that all of you would be in strong opposition to it as well. So I'm asking you as a concerned resident, if the shoe were on the other foot, please consider that proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next, please.
My name is Brian Bruland. I'm at 27880 Lime Street. I've been living there for about 20 years. I'm reminded by the thing up there, the small town charm. It's not real charming when it's going to take you about 30, 40 minutes just to get off your street to go to work in the morning or to get home. Other than that, I'm concerned about emergency services, being able to make it down our street. We do have some neighbors that on occasion need some help. I don't think it's going to be successful. I've watched them try to get down Bonita Beach Road in the evenings. They can barely do that. So I just wanted to go on record as I am opposed to the car wash as well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next. Well, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for their cogent and well thought out remarks. And I think we have one issue, Mr. Rooney. The mayor's question should be addressed maybe by
Staff or the applicant, whoever.
staff or
they
the
can answer
applicant.
Question better.
Will you state your question again,
No,
Mr. Mayor?
I've got the question down as,
You have it? Okay.
you know, is there a need for a wall and what type of insulation would be required? And what's gonna happen with the gray water?
The wall was the west wall. Rick, the wall was the west wall? Rick, the wall was the west wall. Between the proposed and what is it, the water place, Connecticut Water?
The wall of length of the property that's gonna prevent the water from going into the retention area? Or does all that water go back out towards the beach road?
Thank you. So again, Wayne Arnold for the record. This is Mr. Fegon's presentation, but I think the wall exhibit addresses the mayor's comment very clearly. So I think the area in question, I'm not sure which one to point to, but the area in question is this segment of the wall that's a north-south return next to the Connecticut business. And the question is whether or not that we need that. And I know that spoken briefly with Mr. Fegon, I spoke with representatives from Connecticut Water. We would be fine with eliminating that wall segment. I think they had a concern over some visibility for their building from Bonita Beach Road as people are traversing to the west. And we don't believe that that has any bearing on the sound study that we had completed. So if that's something that's the pleasure of the zoning board, we'd be happy to remove that wall segment to address that comment. And then secondarily, the mayor's comment was about the water management. So the wall will be designed so that it has some intake areas for water to go into our floodplain compensation area as well as the other dry detention areas. And then it will ultimately get discharged through pipes out to Bonita Beach Road. Thank you. So if I might, just with some of the rebuttal comments, if I might, if it's not inappropriate, sir. So we heard a lot of information about, and I wasn't given copies of the handout information from the residents, but I believe that she shared that with us. And this was an engineering study that was completed by a company on behalf of not even sure who, but that study put a retention pond on private property, and obviously the city or the state can't just put their public improvements on private property. So there would be a process for them to move forward. They have not moved forward. We've not been approached by anybody on behalf of them Tommy's Car Wash owns the property, so they should have been given notice by anyone who was looking to do this study. So I'm not sure what the status of it is, but we have not been approached by it. And of course, as Mr. Herrera testified, we're designing this in accordance with South Florida Water Management District criteria. We can do no harm, as you heard Mr. Figon tell you numerous times with regard to the water management. The water is sheet flowing south, so we're capturing water flowing into the property, controlling that, and then discharging it off the site. So we don't believe, in our opinion, that we have any issue with regard to that. The traffic nuisance obviously has been mentioned by several people, and it came up early in the conversation. We'd be more than happy to put a no left turn sign out of our driveway onto Lime Street if that addresses any expressed concerns by you or the residences, because we don't believe that there's any need for the general public to try to traverse and go left out of our site on Lime
Did you
Street.
not say that Lime Street terminates at a dead end?
It is a dead-end
Go
street.
left?
You can go left, but you can get out to Imperial by two means. There's Tangerine Street and Orange Blossom. That,
You can
So
go through
y-
a residence,
so you have to,
shortcut.
it would be a shortcut only known to certain people, but I think I can bring Mr. Banks up here, who's been a traffic engineer in our community for nearly 30 years.
Do is you look at it, and if it really becomes a hassle, then you do it.
Well, I think, unless you're living in the immediate vicinity, I think our normal traffic pattern takes us down the major roadways and doesn't cut through neighborhoods. It's not really intuitive, especially unless you live there. So we don't believe that that is a valid concern about cut-through traffic because of us, because as it's been mentioned, and I'm not trying to belabor the point that was made, but the site is zoned commercial, and it's in your overlay that allows dozens and dozens of other commercial uses. So whether it's Tommy's
We've-
or it's another use.
We've beaten that.
Well, that's why I didn't want to say it, but I think it's important to note that they're concerned that people are going to find their way because it's a car wash could be the same because it would be a restaurant, which is another permitted use by right. So there are other means. The FDOT study that was cited talks about the US 41 intersection. This had nothing to do with Lime Street nor Imperial Parkway. That was a study that was looking at US 41.
I think we've heard everything that.
And then with regard to the overall traffic, you heard Mr. Banks represent that in his professional and expert opinion that Lime Street is only carrying 18% of the volume of traffic that it could otherwise carry. And keep in mind that as staff showed you on the presentation, everything that fronts Bonita Beach Road is designated for future commercial use. We're required to use Lime Street for any commercial activity because the Lee DOT does not want another access point on Bonita Beach Road that close to Lime Street. So anybody who develops this site will be using Lime Street for their access. So again, we have met the criteria. We can talk about special exception and whether or not we want this use, but there are criteria in your land development code. And it's not a matter of if not this, what else, because your code lists dozens and dozens of uses that are either permitted or they're special exceptions. And you had another special exception on your agenda today. I mean, those are valid permitted uses with procedures that we have to go through to demonstrate.
We hear you, and we thank you for your comments.
Don't go away.
Mr. Gambrell?
I've heard it both ways. Lime Street is public or private?
I believe the portion that we access is considered a public roadway that's maintained by the city.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, at this, you're gonna have to, if you're gonna answer that question, you have to come to the,
And you're Kathy? Yes, sir. Come on. I'm not a sir.
all the way.
Kathy. Once you go past, you have Orange Blossom, then you have Tangerine. As soon as you pass Tangerine, the rest of the street is all private. It's owned by the residents. And even now, we have people who continuously think they can make shortcuts, and they try to go through. So now we had a car wash, we're gonna add how many more, 100 more cars an hour that are potentially gonna think they can go all the way down Lime Street, and then turn around in our yard.
Okay, so don't go away.
Okay,
I'm your neighbor. I live right on the other side of the,
perfect, you understand.
and I have tried to find a shortcut to Dean Street by going down Lime, and you only try it once. And today I have learned I can cut around the corner by going Tangerine and Orange Blossom.
Correct.
Seems to me the only way someone coming out of the car wash or whatever commercial is on that business is on that property, the only reason I would ever want to turn left is to get out via Tangerine or Orange Blossom onto Imperial because I'm going south on Imperial.
Right. And if you try to do that in season, you're gonna be sitting there for a long time because you cannot cross all the way over to try to go south.
All the way
Or,
up.
excuse me, to try to go east. If you wanna go east, you're stuck. You can't do it. So when I wanna go to Home Depot, I have to pretty much go all the way down to Racetrack and do a U-turn just to go to Home Depot. So now we're adding all the additional traffic, and again, when you talk in season, it's not possible. So now all those cars are gonna be backed up on our street, and we're not gonna be able to get out, respectfully.
You said, I moved here in 2016 at that property right on the other side of the river. And the first year you gave for flooding was 1995.
That's just what I
That
was
you know.
able to-
Yeah,
right,
you-
that's all I know. Because when we moved here, we were told of the 15-year flood. We kind of laughed it off. There is such a thing as a 15-year flood on Lime Street.
And I'm hearing 100-year storms in 50
Yeah,
years.
no.
It's out the window now.
Yeah, it's 15 years.
When Irma was here in 2017, my neighborhood flooded,
So did these guys.
and my neighborhood almost flooded with Ian.
Yep.
But that was all the river. Are you saying it's not the river causing the flooding on Lime Street? It is the rainfall coming down?
This property, if during a rainy season, the water is puddled right there at the street. So there are times when we can't even go out Lime Street. We have to go Orange Blossom or Tangerine, because if you go straight on Lime Street, it's flooded.
It's flooded, impassable at Lime and Bonita Beach?
Correct. There are times.
Okay. It's gonna,
like that.
it's gonna happen. I mean, that's where we are.
Right.
I'd like to ask,
The-
Yeah. Oh, go
Is it really, I understand that, is it possible whatever this study was a while back, the city actually designated this, Mike, as a retention area? The whole commercial property is a retention area?
That's what Structure Point suggested, and as I mentioned in my statement, I specifically asked the engineers at Structure Point, what would happen if we did not have that detention pond? And they specifically said everything on Lime Street and west would continue to flood. So they said that this is the proposed point. What I'm gonna ask you too, is if we don't get that spot that is empty right now, if the city does not purchase that, we also have more development that's going on. Where are we gonna put these detention ponds? We keep building and building and building, but we're not solving the problem.
But if
This is how we are appealing to you.
But if the river comes up, no amount of retention areas are gonna make a difference.
But a detention pond, which is what is suggested, is supposed to stop that.
If the river comes up,
The detention pond, I'd have to read my definition, but if you read the definition of a detention pond, it is supposed to hold the water to keep it from flowing into the river.
that's rainwater coming in, okay.
And I had to Google it because I didn't know myself. So if you do the difference between a detention pond and a retention pond, I think you'll understand what I'm speaking.
she's talking about rainwater, maybe not the river flooding.
Yeah,
She's, yeah,
which if the rainwater.
right,
never
rainwater.
mind.
Either way, I'm just trying to protect our homes.
I'm with you, I
So,
got the same issue. Mike, you were gonna tell me, you're gonna tell me.
Yes, sir. Yes, there have been several studies conducted with regards to flood issues in the area. Obviously, we saw an uptick in that as being something that was on the forefront after Irma in 2017. So this was a study that was done around that time that targeted specific areas of inundation with water throughout significant rain events. And a big part of that study is that it's multi-pronged in how it works. So it wasn't just this piece. It was this piece plus 14 or 15 residential lots that currently have homes on them, and then a few other pieces to the west that would all work together to try and somewhat limit the flooding issues in a particular area. There are facets of that plan that the city has actually implemented. We have a home buyout program right now where we use FEMA grant money to try and buy out homes that are in special flood hazard areas. and remove the homes and leave it as green space or use it for water retention purposes. It's a voluntary program, though. You cannot force somebody to sell the property to you, so it's voluntary in nature. We're lucky in that we've had a pretty good amount of compliance from several of the residences that were interested in doing a project like that. But again, you have to have a willing seller, and it was designed that it all works together. So it wasn't just this property as being the save-all sort of aspect. It worked with a combination of other properties and drainage improvements in the area.
What'd you call that buyout program? What's the name of it?
It was the,
It's FEMA-based?
yeah, it's with FEMA grant money. It's called the, I think it's called the the City of Bonita Springs Home Buyout Program.
And what neighborhoods have been designated that we want to use that money in?
It's not entire neighborhoods, it's just certain areas. I think the focus right now is sort of the western portion of Dean, and I believe it's Downs and Quinn. So we're still in the general area of where this is. That's being, yes, sir.
And back behind the flea market.
Correct.
And is Lime Street a candidate for that program?
Not to my knowledge.
I think we're getting a little,
They
if I may. I think that's, we're getting beyond the question of whether or not we can.
Well, we're learning.
Tommy's Car Wash.
I have something for
I
Mike.
think if we,
I got something for Mike.
another question.
Yeah, I can understand the residents. If I had a house there, I'm tracking with you. But my question is this: if we said no to this, or are we not kicking the can down the road? You're gonna have to come back up here again for other properties, other people that will say, hey, I wanna put a McDonald's, I wanna put something else there. The traffic flow is still gonna be still there. I mean, I'm just throwing that out for future. I mean, this property is zoned, for commercial, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing what they're saying. I get that. But what would happen if another piece of, a commercial person come in and say, listen, I wanna do something else there? Are we not gonna have the same issue here again?
You're gonna have similar issues because these are issues that are gonna be incumbent to the property regardless of what gets developed there. Whether or not it comes back before you is dependent on what type of use they want to put on the property, because not all uses require a special exception. Many of the uses are just permitted by right and don't require going through public hearings. But, the same uses, whether it comes before you, are uses that we always look at. Traffic, drainage, environmental, so on and so forth. Those are universal things that we need to address regardless of the application type. And I apologize for misspeaking about the home buyout program. I'm not the steward of that, so I wasn't sure what proximity the letters did go out to, but apparently from the audience, they were receiving some of those letters off of Lime Street.
What kind of business wouldn't have to come back before us? Would a McDonald's have to come back before us?
Yes. Yes, especially for the drive-through component. Again, if it's auto-oriented, it tends to be one that's going to come back before you, but a standard restaurant, medical offices, things like that could be permitted by right. Retail.
Thank you.
I have one question. Just the clarification, I think it was already brought up to some extent, but regarding this floodplain compensation comment, does this property as it exists today currently store some stormwater, and under its proposed use, will it store additional stormwater or less?
If I might, again, Wayne Arnold. So the answer is yes and no. Yes, because it's largely undeveloped, water can fall on there, and where it puddles, because it's been unimproved, it may stay there, but there's no controlled water management system. So the ponding that you may find in the roadway adjacent to it may be improved because you put in a modern water management system where we collect not only the water that falls on our site, but is coming into the site today, so it gets controlled, it gets managed before it gets discharged. Today, there is no water management system to control anything. The water just falls where its sheet flows. So in our opinion, and I know it sounds counterintuitive sometimes for the residents, but typically when you take an undeveloped piece of property, you've improved the water management system once you develop it because there are regulations you're designing to. Today, there's nothing there to control the water.
So it's your opinion that it will actually store more stormwater.
Yes,
after
sir.
Development than it does today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we have Mike Feek on there. Before we vote, Michael, can you give us an update on the Oakland CPD?
It was approved by City Council.
Okay. Now, I think we're ready to vote.
Roll call,
Um,
roll call.
You want to do it that way? Okay.
Wait, do we have a motion?
Oh, I'll make the motion. I mean, I'll make the motion to approve the application as recommended by the city with the conditions imposed by the city. And someone will second that motion? Someone? Anyone?
Seeing no second, the motion fails.
Where do we go from here, Mr. Paul?
There needs to be, is there a motion to deny the special exception? And a recommendation on conditions? Remember, one of the elements that this is a permitted use, subject to conditions, so in recommending a denial, for clarity for the city council state, identifying the areas of concern would be very helpful.
I'll make a motion to deny the special exception based on not meeting the criteria for approval, namely criteria G, whether the request will protect, conserve, or preserve environmentally critical areas and natural resources. Criteria H, whether the request will be compatible with existing or planned uses. And criteria I, whether the request will cause damage, hazard, nuisance, or other detriment to persons and property. I don't think this proposal meets those criteria at all.
To which I would definitely disagree.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second to deny.
To deny.
Is there some way, Derek, that
So
we
the-
can table,
Look, what I've been hearing here
There's
is,
no,
I
if
have
there's
been
no
hearing-
second, then that fails, and then
Fails
you
as
have,
well.
then have conversation.
I have been hearing a lot of potential issues. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe traffic, maybe water. I've heard nothing positive, no proof. So for me, as a quasi-judicial, I cannot just deny something without any kind of proof. Show me why, proving me why this thing will not work. Never mind. That's my position, but, I'm only one vote. So we still have conflicting motions.
Both motions are off the table at the moment, so,
Both are off the table.
correct.
So we need a
New
third one.
motion.
Well, I think what he's saying is we can debate now until
Yeah,
we come to a
now's
resolution.
time for your debate.
Well, you've heard my position.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the city has outlined all of the conditions required for a special exemption and has presented a cogent argument why they've met. Now, if someone disagrees with that, well, let's go and find out why. I mean, it's a nuisance, it's a subjective thing.
But it's a criteria.
Subjective? No, not for me.
I don't think these people are subjective out here. I think they're very objective, saying my
It
house
has
is
to
right
be-
next to this,
I-
and it's gonna be a
Well,
disaster.
what is the nuisance?
Traffic.
Interferes, anything that interferes with the peaceable conduct of the use of my
You
property.
mean to go in, maybe how many feet is it from Bonita Beach Road to the entrance of the car wash?
Bonita Beach Road to the entrance, around 60 to 70 feet. 75 feet. Yeah,
75 feet.
75 feet, and how many houses abut those 75 feet? None. So where's the nuisance? You're
think-
anticipating that
Wait a
someone
minute.
is gonna
No,
come out of
no,
the car wash
no house-
and make a left turn.
No house abuts this property? Is that
I
what you're
asked
saying?
him, 75 feet from Bonita Beach
Alright.
Road to the entrance to the car wash,
One-
no houses abut that.
One speaker at a time, just so the
Right.
record's clear. I think maybe the clarification and the dispute here is vehicles traveling to the car wash will only go 75 feet. The question is whether vehicles will then turn out of the car wash errantly or purposefully to go other places impacting.
That's the issue.
I'm expanding this beyond cars. We have noise, we have lighting, we have traffic.
We have a
All
noise
those are
control,
nuisances.
we have a noise thing that said it's not an issue. You've heard him with the decibels. I mean, what am I missing? Right, Michael? Noise, the noise, you said it was below, whatever, right? I mean, you gave me all kinds of scientific decibels.
You have the noise study as part of your application backup. Staff has no reason to dispute the figures, but still added the soundproofing condition as an additional measure.
So noise is not an issue, my opinion.
Michael, can I ask a question? If after the facility is constructed, will there be a requirement to test the noise again?
Yes?
And if it fails?
They have to, there's a whole process laid out in the noise ordinance for fixing a noise ordinance violation, but yes, if it fails, we would have to re-examine the allowable material, wall height, all kinds of things.
And you know, the other way, Gary, to take your issue, put, like they said, put a no left turn sign onto Lime Street as you come out of the car wash. That problem goes away.
That has not been made a condition as yet.
No, but I mean,
I
maybe we
understand
can
that, but that has
impose
not been made a condition yet.
We can impose that as a condition, can we not? We have
Yes.
the authority to do that, and that would take care of that issue.
If I may, we have a dead end sign that is ineffective. I have at least 40 cars a day turn around in my driveway where it's ripping apart my asphalt because people can't go down Bonita Beach Road already.
But they come from somewhere other than.
They come from Bonita Beach Road.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with the car wash.
Absolutely does. They're coming down the same street.
This is
All
gonna
these
add
people that are
volume
going
to
to
it.
the car wash are gonna be going to.
What- They're gonna add value, they're already struggling with,
Already struggling.
and this business is gonna add volume to whatever's on.
Even
That's
our
what I'm
sheriff's
just saying.
department comes down that street thinking that they can get through and they can't.
Mr. Chairman, we gotta get control of the meeting. We can't have, if you wanna hear more from the public, you wanna hear more from the applicant, you wanna hear more from the staff, we can do that, but I think there's yelling going out, everyone's cross-talking. Right now, it's conversation between the board members. If they wish to hear from you, sir, or any of the other members of the public, they'll give an additional opportunity.
What I fail to understand is the car wash being there. I mean, apparently, if there's an issue now, if people coming off Bonita Beach Road, whether they're going east or west, turning onto Lime Street to go cut through that and go somewhere else, is irrelevant whether or not there's a car wash there. If they're doing it now, why is the car wash gonna make any difference? I mean, they're not gonna go into the car, you know, I mean, they go into the car wash, they gotta make that left-hand turn. They're not gonna, it's not gonna add to any extra volume, none whatsoever.
Yeah, it will. I'm going to the car wash for the first time.
Right.
I'm coming out of the car wash.
Yeah.
Bonita Beach Road is busy, like,
Okay.
you know.
So-
So I'm gonna try a left.
Well, that's what I said, let's impose a condition that they say no left turn. That takes care of all these concerns.
They're gonna do it.
It's gonna get done.
Anyway,
Huh?
they'll do it anyway. Nobody's gonna.
But, sure, they're gonna break the law, why not? Why not go through a red light? Gary, you can't do that, you
Gary's
cannot
over here.
anticipate that.
Gary's
Bruce,
over
I'm
here.
sorry. You cannot
other
anticipate
trouble
that
here.
people are gonna break the law.
Well,
Just can't do it.
Okay, fine, I'm not gonna anticipate it, okay? We're still gonna increase the volume of traffic on that street by adding the car wash. I don't see anything that this use adds to the neighborhood other than more lighting, business operation that goes on until 9 or 10 at night, more noise, which I'm still not convinced that the noise study makes any sense at all, because it was done in Wisconsin, okay?
but it was
Not in, on this site, with this location, with or without these huge banyan trees that are there, that are buffering the noise, they'll be gone, okay? I just don't see how this is an addition to this neighborhood and how it meets the criteria, particularly of nuisance and a detriment to these properties. These are
We've been
single-family
through that.
homes.
We've been through that.
But it's commercial but it's commercial property.
Yeah,
It is-
So how do we
this
tell this
is-
poor man he can't?
This is a special
Sorry,
exception. It's a commercial property, but it's a special exception. The special exception has heavier impacts than the normal commercial use. Therefore, it's set aside as a special exception. Our job is to look at those impacts and see whether or not they can be overcome or whether they can't be overcome. I don't think they can be overcome on this site. This
we have
I
a
think that's
dispute.
I think that's an excellent point. I hear
We
you.
have a dispute. In my opinion, the special exemption criteria.
that's why
have
we're
been
talking.
met. If anyone disagrees, they have a right to do that.
So, the. Mike's got it.
With regards to the noise, similar to what Derek said, would it help if there was a black and white condition regarding the need for an additional noise study once it's built to demonstrate compliance? And if there's any issues, they need to go back and re-examine? We can do that if that helps.
Out of the barn by then?
I'm sorry?
Isn't the horse out of the barn by then?
Hold on a second, just to help clarify. The applicant has the initial burden of proof to show that they've met the criteria. The applicant and the staff provided competent substantial evidence that they meet all the criteria. There has been, in my opinion, competent substantial evidence, in other words, fact-based evidence presented by the public. The board's opportunity now is to wade through that evidence and to see whether or not there is sufficient competent substantial evidence to deny the application. The burden is now on the board to sift through the record and determine what competent substantial evidence against. There has been no testimony on noise. There has been no testimony on light in opposition to the application. So just, I want to point that out. The testimony that has been raised by the public, and I've been keeping tabs, has been stormwater considerations, an exacerbation of flooding, and traffic. Those are, if there is additional evidence that has been made on the record, either in the submittals that were submitted or otherwise, I would ask that you raise that evidence in whatever motion or in the continuing in discussion. But it's not to be picking things that haven't been put on the record yet.
So, to the other board members, regarding the traffic issue, I don't think that a no left-hand turn sign is very effective. Whether it's legal or not, I agree. It's illegal, but people will do it. But it appears to me that as you're exiting the site in the right lane, that there is a current entrance onto the property that you plan to just take out and replace. Why couldn't you just put a small median on your property diverting the traffic to the right so that they could only exit right?
Could be done.
In other words,
If you're going to speak, come up on the record and add it.
Sure, if I might address, Mr. Chairman, yes, we could do that. It's easy to put a diverter in the driveway so that no left turn movements are permitted outside.
How does that stop it?
Well, you're in a lane that is going right.
I'm getting ready to exit the property.
you know,
I've had my
Right.
shiny car.
It's not a
There's a curbing,
90-degree
right?
perpendicular. You're in a lane now that brings you.
Oh, like we did on Burnwood
Yeah.
that I could jump over when I want to go left?
It would be a raised curb situation.
Raised curb.
Yeah, it would be a non-mountable curb for purposes of
And that would
Where's
not
my autos.
affect people coming south on Lime Street, right?
Well,
No,
Beyond
because
the
it'd be
property.
inside the
Beyond the
property.
property.
That's a very good
figure
suggestion.
that out, but.
I mean, that, to me, solves, it's a better control mechanism
Yeah, I
for
mean,
making sure people don't take the left.
Somebody's gonna have to go out of their
And-
way.
And I do believe that the site, once developed,
Now, here's,
will provide additional stormwater retention beyond what it currently provides. So I see that as
As a positive.
a positive. So I see two solutions to the stormwater issue and to the traffic issue, And if they can be verified, then I can support.
Okay. Question. What happens if a resident of Tangerine wants to get his car washed and comes down
it
into the
doesn't-
car, and then he wants to go home? He can't make a left.
Well, that's true.
You can't have everything. You just can't.
That's
You
true.
just have to rely on people obeying the law or the rules of the road, and you can't solve everything
No.
that may come up.
But it has less,
But I think
I
your
believe
position
it has
makes
less
less.
impact.
Yes, it does make less impact, you're right. You're right. There we are.
There we are.
I invariably find after good presentations by all sides at this meeting that I like to sleep on stuff. I don't want to kick the can down the road, but I know I will come up with some more good questions, given more time to think about this.
But look, the questions are fine. The point is, have the applicant and the city met their requirements, to grant a special exemption? That's the question.
And you say yes, and
And
Bruce
I
says
say they
no,
have.
and I'm not ready to decide yet. Maybe Russ isn't ready yet.
Derek, what do we do? Can we postpone this? We can't, we're gonna have to have another open meeting again to decide this. Of course, we can't decide it in camera.
I don't have, I mean, what additional information would be required or provided to address the standards and the issues? I think you've addressed what the concerns are. The question is whether you can properly condition them, or if you cannot, then recommending denial.
Then vote against it. I mean, if that's what you feel, vote against it.
That's always, yeah.
That's your prerogative.
It's either a yes or no. Ultimately, the city council.
That is true also.
Makes a decision.
So if you feel strongly, Gary, make a motion to deny. And remember-
But my reason for denial is to give myself time to think about
Remember,
it more.
it's always appeal to the city council.
That is,
And keep that in mind, and how do they think?
and I hate kicking it down the road to them.
Well, that's what we're doing, one way or the other.
Do that anyway.
We either
They
approve
didn't
it
even
or
look at
deny it,
Oakland
or
when they
kicking
voted.
it down the road.
And how many times have you said yes and they said no, and how many times you said no and they said yes?
I have no idea.
If you
Yeah, I'm
feel,
just saying.
seriously, if you feel strongly and you do it, I would say that you should vote against it. If that's what your conscience tells you to do it, do it. Seriously.
That's right. That's right. You saw.
That's what I would
we've
I'll
heard
make the motion
arguments.
Gary Gambrell will make the motion to deny in hopes we get to see it again.
Second,
Second.
all right, would you call the roll, Michael?
Board Member Nguyen.
No.
Board Member Gambrell.
When I say no, what am I voting on? The motion to deny?
You're voting in favor of it.
I'm voting
your
in
motion.
favor of the motion to deny. Yes.
Oh,
Russ, are you in favor
That's
of the
what
motion to deny or not?
yes,
You want to deny it?
yes.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry, thanks for the clarification.
So I'll begin the roll again. Board Member Nguyen.
Yes.
Board Member Gambrell.
Yes.
Board Member Benson.
No.
Board Member Galloway.
Yes.
Chairman Rassio.
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
So the motion is,
It's just a
the
recommendation.
application is denied. Thank everybody, all the public, the board members, the city and everybody else. Thank you very much. Phase 2 is coming up at the next board meeting, I imagine. So that's what we did.
Are we adjourned?
Down the road, we're through.
We haven't had a motion to adjourn and all
I
that.
call a motion to adjourn.
Hold on.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
And that's fine.